Hello, National University Academy and National University Virtual High School students. Mr. Goyette coming back to you about Unit 6. I got cut off shortly ago in finishing up our review of Unit 6, so I'm going to continue. We've discussed the beginning of World War II, the United States, and the beginning of Roosevelt's term as president, the Good Neighbor policy, and now we've just covered Pearl Harbor and we're in the midst of World War II. Now we're finishing up now talking about the Marshall Plan and rebuilding of Europe. So let's look at what the Marshall Plan proposed. The Marshall Plan was a plan to finance the economic recovery of Europe. It was it offered $17 billion in assistance over a total of 4 years. You can review this at greater length on page 840 or 814. The United States assured its Western Europeans that it would honor its NATO commitment at this time, as the Marshall Plan was being put forth. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization commitments would be honored, and the assurances were given. Part of the agreement there was that by stationing American troops in Western Europe, it let the Europeans know that they were there to stay to help rebuild, and were serious about their alliances. This is on page 815 of your America Past and Present textbook. Truman responded to the Soviet blockade of Berlin as the Soviets build that wall in between East and West Berlin in 1948. Truman responds by getting some C-47s and C-54s and loading them up with food, fuel, and supplies. And he starts something called the Berlin Airlift. He also sent about 60 American B-29 bombers over there to give the impression that he was ready to possibly use a atomic device. And by airlifting supplies into the city, he started the Berlin Airlift. What best describes the goal of the Truman administration when it supported the National Security Act in 1947, it was to unify the military service and coordinate diplomatic and military strategy. This is on page 817 of your textbook. The most significant result of the Korean War was a ramping up of the massive rearmament by the United States. For a long time, Dean Acheson had spoke of NSC-68 and this need to have a massive rearmament, and the Korean War allowed the United States to do that. So the National Security Council got its wish. Look at page 821 for more on that. Senator Joseph McCarthy drew a disproportionate backing from working class Irish, Polish, and Italian Catholics. Those were the groups that continually supported him. McCarthy offered a simple domestic solution to the complex international problems of rebuilding Europe and having to spend money to try to keep our alliances. He said just root out the communists and the federal bureaucracy in Washington and eliminate the foreign aid programs that would lead to foreign entanglements, and this would be it. But what he did is he reignited a second Red Scare, and just like the first Red Scare that was discredited by its own histrionics, this McCarthy, unfortunately, was a known alcoholic. He would go on these tirades against people that were known patriots, generals. He attacked the military often. People that had saved lives and helped people. Now, it was true, the Alger Hiss was convicted of being a communist, and that certainly points to that he was. But McCarthy would attack so many parts of the industry. He attacked George Marshall, Dean Acheson, calling him Red Dean. He even put Nancy Reagan, before she was Nancy Reagan, her name ended up on a list, and Ronald Reagan had to call her, I think as part of the Screen Actors Guild, and ask, "Oh, so you're a communist? This can't be right." And that's how one of the ways that they met and started talking. And then Reagan left his first wife and started a new marriage. But McCarthy was running out of control there. And it says, secret of McCarthy's power was the fear he engendered among his Senate colleagues. And it says that, part I was going to read, Congress Republicans led by Senator Ralph Flanders of Vermont and Margaret Chase Smith of Maine joined with Democrats to bring about the Senate censure of McCarthy in December of 1954 by a vote of 67 to 22. Once rebuked, McCarthy fell quickly from prominence. He died 3 years later, virtually unnoticed and unmourned. One of the reasons he died so soon after his falling from the public eye is he was such a horrible alcoholic. He had pickled his liver and he died young. I think it was 52 or 57, I forget which. Which statement best describes the role played by John Foster Dulles in the conduct of foreign policy during the Eisenhower administration? Well, he made public speeches and congressional appearances, but President Eisenhower made all the decisions. That's on page 830. U.S. foreign policy of containment, what policy of his containment were there? The offering of protection to Greece and Turkey, the extension of economic aid to Western Europe, and the establishment of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization were all methods of containment. The Lend-Lease Act, which helped Russia, or the Soviet Union, was outside of the containment policy. It was actually one of the few things the United States was doing that was not in line with its containment policy. Most Americans wished to convince the lost sheep of the Korean War. You can review this. What page was that on? Lost sheep were the guys that fought in the Korean War, the soldiers in the Korean War that were captured, and then when they had a chance to come back, they stayed in Korea and said, no, the United States is a bunch of imperialist pigs. We're going to stay in Korea. Most Americans wished to convince the lost sheep of the Korean War to return home because they feared they would contribute to communist propaganda efforts. The post-war mood of the American people could best be described as one that favored a swift conversion to a peacetime economy. Remember I mentioned that now that they had saved up, they have their war bonds and their money saved up, they wanted to start being consumers again. Bernard Baruch and General Eisenhower insisted on preserving American post-war monopoly on atomic weapons, and this was to intimidate the Russians. That's on page 812. And the principal goal of the Eisenhower's foreign policy, let me read that slowly, I keep stammering. The principal goal of Eisenhower's foreign policy was to relax tensions and initiate disarmament. This was later on. This was waging peace on page 833. You can review his more nuanced position. You'll also want to take a look at the Suez Crisis on page 831 and the military-industrial complex, Eisenhower's comments on the military-industrial complex on page 835. So please take careful notes, review your textbook before you take the test. Good luck. Wishing you positive results on that exam, and call, email, or Skype if you have any questions or concerns about your work. Talk to you soon. Bye now.